August 6, 1945. A threshold the world is crossing. A single aircraft carrying a weapon the world had never seen before. One machine. One mission. One irreversible morning.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And everything changed.
The burden carried by those who must decide the shape of an ending, of the terrible arithmetic of command in the last year of the largest war in human history.
In the silence behind closed doors, history is altered. A decision made, irreversible, known only to the man who made it.
Target coordinates confirmed. Hiroshima, population 350,000. The calculus of strategy often erases the human cost of such a strike.
Decisions that end wars are made far from the fields where they are fought. Distance softens the blow. What takes seconds to authorize takes decades to fully understand, and that the permanence of ink on paper carries no hint of the permanence of its consequences.
Science harnessed to purpose. Brilliant minds that believed they were serving peace through the perfection of destruction.
Secrecy was so complete, they could only see their piece of the whole. They were unable to fully imagine what their calculations would one day become.
Here, hidden in the desert, far from anything ordinary, the future was assembled in secret.
The air hung thick with a mixture of dread and pride. They approached the unprecedented moment of no return.
March July 16, 1945. Aboard the morning theory became fact. The morning a small group of scientists learned the
Casualty projections for a land invasion of Japan were staggering. The terrible arithmetic drove planners toward what they calculated as the lesser catastrophe.
This war consumed hundreds of thousands, an advance measured in blood, with no final horizon yet visible.
Both sides had resolved to fight to the last. The Pacific War had become a contest of national will as much as arms.
In the summer of 1945, this flag carried the weight of the absent. It symbolized homes where the war is a simple formality, yet it represents absolute finality. Decisions of enormous consequence reduced to the strike of a rubber stamp. August 1945. The threshold that all of the preceding decisions, tests, debates, and signatures had been driving toward.
This island, unheard of outside the military, is now the most consequential geography on Earth. A state
of shadows, both literal and historical. The outline of one aircraft would be cast permanently across the rest of the 20th century. It's the ritual of preparation. Soldiers commit through small physical acts. The hands follow their practiced memory.
They were just men with families. Clear on the ladder. Solid copy.
They were loading more than just a weapon. They were loading the cargo that would permanently alter the meaning of the word war.
The deceptive simplicity of catastrophe. The most consequential things so rarely announce themselves.
A door shutting on one reality, sealing within it the mechanism of another. The sound of metal meeting metal.
The moment waiting ends and motion begins. The weight of decision transforms into the weight of action.
The sky is indifferent. It offers only itself, unconcerned with what this aircraft carries, or the decisions of man.
Falcon 2 actual, check complete.
Solid copy, Falcon 2.
Human contact, stretched thin across the empty sky, a signal waiting in the silence.
Marginals, the compartmentalization of duty, that a navigator navigates and a pilot pilots, each man performing his function, the full...
The journey spanned 6 hours of flight over featureless water. Each hour brought the aircraft closer to
6 hours remain. The final hours before that morning, when the world would change completely.
Hiroshima. An ordinary morning in a living city of 350,000 souls. Ordinary commerce constitutes most of what life is made of. Yet this mundane morning was minutes from being interrupted in a way it would never fully recover from. The routes of daily life, the commutes and destinations people were moving toward that morning, would all be permanently interrupted before most of them arrived. Hiroshima, a sprawling metropolis of rivers, bridges, and dense neighborhoods. This facility was a critical strategic asset, but as you can see, it was inextricably linked to the city around it.
The sound of this bell connects August 6th to every morning that preceded it across centuries.
The world often turns on a single moment, a quiet morning much like this one.
The morning was quiet, ordinary. For those who survived, it would become the most vivid and haunting memory of their lives.
The weather that morning was cloudless and clear, the precise atmospheric conditions that made the city the primary target when other cities remained obscured. For centuries, the river reflected the light, its bridges the connective tissue of a living city. But
the city below goes about its morning. The aircraft above begins its final approach, neither yet aware of the other.
The weight of these seconds has changed. Each one now carries the mass of what it contains.
Through this lens, the city simplifies into geometry. The instrument transforms a living place into a target. Target coordinates set: 34.3949 degrees north, 132.4 delay east.
In the silent isolation of the cockpit, the mission comes down to this breath, this sight, and this final act.
This marks the release, the moment the decision passed fully and irrevocably from human hands into physics, into gravity, into 43...
Look! The jets are firing!
What is that thing?
It's coming down fast!
The physical reality of the blast arrives before understanding. First, the searing thermal pulse, then...
We just witnessed the unthinkable. The grief.
The wave travels outward at supersonic speeds. This overpressure differential creates an invisible wall of air. It traveled miles beyond the hypocenter, a wave of destruction arriving long after the flash. It came for people who never even knew it was coming. These structures were more than buildings. They were homes, schools, markets, and workplaces. The physical containers.
And then the silence falls when something large enough stops making sounds the human ear can categorize as sound.
The dome's survival as an accident that became, in time, the most eloquent statement available about what happened here.
What they witnessed through those windows left them speechless. For the remainder of their lives, they would struggle to find the words. All the precision, the targeting, the technology, the chain of command had produced this single image.
The crew could observe and the instruments recorded. The statistics captured that day could not measure what had happened to the 350,000 people.
Tens of thousands killed instantly.
In 4 to 3 seconds, the city became an entirely different geography. We walked through the ruin of everything we had known. The sounds of a living city have been removed. What remains is the particular silence that falls in the hours after.
The public received the news first in print, words attempting to describe an enormity that photographs could barely capture.
A new weapon of unusual destructive force.
3 days later, the consequences of the first weapon were still arriving. No surrender had come. and the decision was made to proceed.
3 days later, a second city paid that consequence. Without evasion, we acknowledge this city. Nagasaki.
The Imperial Radio broadcast. The first time most Japanese citizens had ever heard the Emperor's voice.
It was a formal ceremony through which a nation was told its war was over.
Marks September 2nd, 1945, the formal end of the Second World War, the ceremony on a ship in Tokyo Bay.
The end of the Second World War. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were the final chapter of the largest catastrophe in recorded human history, not isolated events.
We acknowledge the profound relief that the war's end brought to millions. But we also remember those for whom victory cost everything. Beyond its immediate consequences, the weapon left behind the shape of a new era, altering the architecture of international relations forever.
The lineage began at Trinity, through Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The weapon that ended the war became the defining anxiety of the era that followed.
The paradox of weapons built not to be used, of peace maintained through shared understanding of catastrophic consequence.
Cities represent the irreplaceable accumulation of human life. The question of what kinds of weapons can be directed at them remains the central moral question of the modern era.
From this distance, every city destroyed and every city threatened is the same city, and that the question of how this
memory. Lighting a candle has been the human response to loss across all cultures and centuries. The design is precise. The cenotaph's arch frames the dome, insisting that remembrance must always.
The hibakusha, the survivors. Each of the dwindling few still alive carries the sensory experience of
the generations born in Hiroshima after the bombing, who grew up in a rebuilt city, who inherited a history they did not live but carry nonetheless. In Hiroshima every year on August 6th, the city falls silent at this exact moment. Clocks in the cloud that rose over Hiroshima on August 6th, 1945, did not dissolve in the world's memory as it dissolved in the sky.
They made a deliberate decision to rebuild on this very ground. Today, Hiroshima is fully alive.
How geography persists beyond the events that occur within it. The city destroyed and the city rebuilt share the same coordinates.
First time humanity used a weapon like this. A responsibility passed to every generation born after the morning of August 6th.
Remember, because remembering is the only guarantee available, however imperfect, against repetition.